Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Hormonally Speaking. Glad you are here with us as always. I'm excited to dive in with Cynthia. So let's go ahead and do it. So Cynthia, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be on this podcast with you. I know we've talked about this a couple of times and it's like, it's happened. It's happening.
Exactly. And for those that don't know, Cynthia is actually my trainer. She's so amazing at training. I was just talking to somebody yesterday telling them that I was training with you, and they're like, "Ooh, she is a badass." And I was like, "She is for sure." And that's why I've wanted you to come on this podcast, because I think, the work that you do is inspiring. You're inspiring. I think it's so important. I talk about this a lot on the podcast, particularly once you hit 40, right? Really getting into, I think, different kinds of movement, maybe than you were used to doing in your 20s and 30s, and sort of what has been the focus over the last 20 years, right? And starting to work with your body in a different way so that you're looking at the second half of your life and really like setting your body up for that, right? So how did you in the first place get into fitness? Like what brought you here?
Yeah. So, I feel like I was born a mover. I mean, literally, it's just been part of who I've been my entire life. It's like, I just feel like I'm one of those people that I'm literally born to move. My mom was like, "You never slept, Cynthia." I'm like,
Oh, wow.
"There's too many things to take in." But I mean, really, fitness has been part of my life always. When I was younger, it was sports, and then kind of evolved into horseback riding, and then evolved into long distance mountain biking, long distance running, and then more, plyometric kind of HIIT style classes. Yoga has always been kind of fused in there. But really, for strength training, I started consistently about 4 years ago.
Okay. So
And
what made you start to do the strength training?
yeah, so I had, so the practice that I was teaching, the booty yoga, it really involved, but it was body weight, but it was a lot of like strength training just with body weight. And then through that, actually, I had some injuries. I had a couple of hamstring tears, and yeah. So I went to my physical therapist, who was really incredible, and he was like, "You are very flexible, and you need to gain flexibility. You need to gain strength within this flexibility."
That makes sense.
And I was like, "Really? I mean, I got muscles. I feel like I'm strong, but it's really, I was not lifting weights." So then I was like, okay. And I really realized how much I rehabbed my hamstring tear through deadlifting and RDLs. And it's like, that's really, I was like, okay, if you can do this to an injury, what else can you do to the rest of your body? So I had a friend who was really into strength training and competing. And so they kind of introduced me, and then I just took off with it. And it's like the first time I was lifting weights, it was like, it took me back to my childhood with my father as a stonemason. And I wanted to go to work with him, and I always wanted to show him how strong I was. I was like, I always wanted to lift these heavy rocks and do all the things with him. And he would be like, "Cynthia, you're going to hurt yourself. Be careful." Anyway, it's just kind of been really consistently the last 4 years.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting what you said about the fact that you healed your injuries through weightlifting. Like, I don't think people really think about that or talk about that aspect. So how does that work where it strengthens your body when you've had an injury like that?
Well, I think, anytime we have an injury, then that chain gets weakened. And if you won't bring strength back into that chain and address that weakness, then the whole body just compensates, and suddenly you've got, maybe you've got a hamstring tear, and then now this shoulder goes out, and then the neck is off. And, so how really one injury can just lead to multiple injuries. And through any kind of muscle tear, like it has to be nourished, and it has to be, the strength has to come back to that area. So if you don't put focus on it, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Is there a certain amount of time that you have to wait after you've torn it or injured before you start focusing on that area? Like, were you focusing on other areas first, or can you go right into focusing on that area that was hurt?
I feel like everybody's kind of different with the time frame, and depending on like what kind of injury it is, because I've also had a back injury. I had 2 herniated discs that I've literally rehabbed myself through with
Wow.
strength training,
Wow. Yeah.
So, and it was like, I think if, once you've had an injury, you're going to have pain when you go back and try to start rehabbing that. And then it's, working with whatever professional you're working with to try to figure out like, what's your pain threshold? What is a pain that is actually an okay pain to have for that injury when you're trying to rehab it versus a pain that's going to like trigger you to just to create more maybe tearing or injury,
inflammation. Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
But I would say anytime it's like 6 weeks after an injury, when you can actually move, when you're not in like constant pain, then for sure. Yeah.
That makes sense. And I can imagine it's like a perfect situation if women could work with like a physical therapist and a trainer like you at the same time, right? Because then you can really sort of get all of the information that you need around it and have somebody, 2 people holding you accountable for like not overdoing it, but not underdoing it too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I definitely have a couple of clients that I work with that are also in physical therapy. And it's really great because we'll share each other's notes and they're like, okay, they're ready to progress to this exercise.
Yes.
And so then I can push them through that. So that's the best case scenario.
Team effort always. I know. Yeah. I always tell my clients that too. So going back to the competitions, what made you finally decide to start doing them? And can you tell us a little bit about what they're like for anybody that's interested in maybe going on that path?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I absolutely love it because I'm very goal oriented and I'm very like, if I have something in my mind and it's like like I'm so determined it's going to happen and I can just like shut the rest of the world out and be like, here's where I'm at. I'm going for my goal. So yeah, I had somebody tell me, they were like, Cynthia, I think you have the perfect body type to build to do bikini competition if you wanted to do that. And I was like, wow, okay. So I went to a competition with a friend to watch them compete. And I was like, wow, I was so inspired. I'm like, these bodies look absolutely incredible. It's like that somebody can take their physique to that level with training and nutrition, just like really blew my mind, So then I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So this was in probably the end of 2019. I was like, okay, I'm going to compete in 2020. I'm going to give myself a year to really build muscle and I'm going to do this. Well, then I was going to do it in 2021. I was going to compete. And so at the end of 2020, I actually had 2 herniated discs. Oof. But you know what? I still competed in 2021. I still
That is crazy.
Because I was like, I'm doing this, But yeah, it's really for me, strength training is my meditation. It's like as essential to me as eating, breathing air. It's just the basics of what we absolutely have to have in life. I feel like personally and for other women, but yeah. So like going through the training is like, you just have to focus solely on what you want to be at the end of whatever that time period is. Like seeing yourself over and over and over on stage, what your physique's going to look like, the imagination of how you're going to transform your body, and really you just dive deeply into yourself. Like you have to face a lot of demons. You have to face a lot of negative self-talk about yourself and be like, especially in the beginning where you're like, maybe you're not seeing the results that you want to as quickly as you want to. And you're like, everything is a process and everything takes time. Sometimes it takes years to get to where you want to be with your physique if you're wanting to compete,
Right.
But yeah, it's like showing up in the gym minimum 5 days a week. Strength training. You got to really look at everything you're putting into your body because everything shows, everything counts at the end of this. Say you're training for, a 20-week period. And it's like at the end of this 20 weeks, everything that you put into your body, it's all going to show the moment you're on stage.
Yeah. Well, and just as an aside, but to connect this in, I mean, what you're saying is kind of the same thing as when you're working with any aspect of your health, whether you're working with your hormones or your physique, it's so much of what you just said, I think, is what women encounter. It's like things don't change as fast as you want them to, your hormones don't get like leveled out as quickly as you want them to. It's like, it matters what your choices are all the time. Right. And it is this, place that you face a lot of demons too along the way, right? So much comes up in when you have decided to go on a path of improving your health, whatever level it is. And I think we live in a culture where they're just like 30 days to this, or like switch everything around in 2 weeks. And it's like, that's not the reality of health, right? No matter which aspect of health you're talking about. It's like, you have to stay consistent. You have to keep your mind focused. You're going to face a lot of demons. A lot of shit is going to come up, and you're going to have to just be able to really work with your mindset in a deep way.
Oh, everything is mindset. It
Mm-hmm.
really does. And it's like, and for me, I think a lot of people sometimes struggle with motivation, and yes, every day the motivation may not be there.
Right.
I can honestly say that I've never had a day that I've been like, oh, I got to go to the gym. I'm like,
that's amazing. I don't think many people could say that.
I know, but that's where it's like, it's part of who you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, this is truly your path. And it just kind of validates that even more like profoundly for me, that like, I have a deep love for strength training and for lifting weights. It feels so good in my body,
So for women that want to maybe not compete, but to do, get into more strength training, but they do encounter the like, ugh, I don't want to go. Do you have advice for them on sort of working with that feeling?
I mean, I think you have to be self-disciplined. It's literally, if there is something that you really want, no matter what it is, you have to be self-disciplined enough to make that happen. Put it on your schedule, like it's part of your work life, part of your work day. But that is something that you don't skip out on to be like, oh, I just need a little extra sleep. Or, which, I mean, maybe you do need extra sleep. I mean, we all have to give ourselves those times, but excuses.
Yeah.
Like, we really have to just stop making excuses for ourselves to move.
Yeah.
But having a buddy, like you train with a friend, you come to me together with a friend, and you'll like push each other, you motivate each other. So buddy system to work out with. I mean, I think that's really great, especially sometimes women, they feel if they don't really know what they're doing in the gym, like, where do you start? You have to build this level of confidence, and building the confidence takes the experience of doing it repetitively, and then you become confident with it. But in programs, I would say some kind of an online program that is gonna, I have and we'll talk about this later. I know that a challenge that I'm currently running, and then I have another challenge that's coming up July 11th, but where you go into the gym and you have a structured, here's what I'm going to do. Here's the videos that go along with each exercise, or the photos. And you're going to get in there and you're going to make the best use of your time. And you're not standing there like, what do I do? Where do I start? Because we've all been there. I was there. When I first started training, I was like, what do I do with all these things? There's like hundreds of equipment, and I'm like, where do I even start?
Absolutely.
And so I hired a personal trainer in the beginning as well. And I worked with him for probably about, I don't know, maybe like 2 months. Richie, he owns MC Barbell. He is incredible. Nice. Such a great guy. But then it was like, okay, now I don't need this anymore, because I have, a background of just health and wellness, and teaching yoga and teaching fitness. So I feel like I have that like embodiment of like connecting to my body, mind, breath awareness. But for some people, I feel like that is the best way, is like, if you're really serious about it, to hire a trainer, because maybe it's something that you only need for a short period of time. Maybe it's like, okay, for 2 months, I want to hire a trainer so that I can go into the gym and I can know what I'm doing and not get injured. And I can know my threshold of pushing myself. Because that's important too, to be able to like, push yourself and know when it's time to go up on your weights and how to change your sets up and make all that really the most beneficial time for your body, you know.
Yeah. And I will, plug working with you. Like you said, like I work out with, a friend, we come see you together. And for me, I think this is a big thing for a lot of women too, is like the energy that you get from working out with other people too, right? Like it sometimes when you're going it alone all the time, I think especially like for you, you're really drawn to it, but for women listening that may not be as like motivated, it's like when you get that energy from another person going with you, whether it's working with a trainer or buddy system, what have you, then that it makes it fun, right? Because it's like you're doing something with connection and community that is healthy, right? Instead of like going out for a drink or whatever. And you're building up connections, ties, all those things, and you're learning so much about your body. And so for me, every time, every week that we work out with you, I'm always like more motivated again for the coming days where I'm going to be working out by myself, versus like if I worked out just by myself all the time, I'd be like, yeah, that's when the excuses I feel like can come in more easily, because you're just like, well, I'm not accountable to anybody, and, other things will start to take over. So I just would plug working with somebody I think is so important, or doing a program like the one that you have going on too, which I know has worked for, the woman that I work out with so well. She's loved that program.
Awesome. And too, working out with somebody else is really inspiring, I think,
Yes.
because it's like you see them push themselves and you're like, whoa, okay. And so each week you see both of you progressing,
Yep.
And especially, if you're working with a trainer, you're like, okay, each week you're learning new things. You're learning new things about your body that you would not necessarily learn as fast on your own.
On your own. Yep.
For me, now I know to get to where I want to be to get my pro card this year, I have to have a trainer. So I worked with a trainer. I actually train with Robbie Robinson. He is like very well-known bodybuilder. Absolutely he's been doing it for 50 years.
And he works with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Or they had a place together.
Yeah, back in the 70s. Yeah, that's when they both like came to Venice Beach, and so I learned stuff constantly, and I'm constantly inspired through knowledge. And we know that knowledge is power, and the more knowledge we have about what we're doing, I feel like it's just this like inspiration spark that just kind of keeps downloading into you when the more knowledge you have, and doing it with a friend. I mean, geez, that's really awesome.
Yeah. I mean, but I think inspiration is so key to keep us motivated with anything, especially when we have a million things kind of pulling at us all the time, because it can be hard to keep that like inspiration going on internally for yourself all the time. So yeah. So why do you think weight training is so important for women, particularly over 40?
Yeah. Okay. So, it's like we look at your typical female that is maybe not very active going into their 40s. And we know that we start getting hormonal shifts. We start losing lean muscle mass. We start losing bone density. It just is a trajectory of what happens. And so how can we then change the trajectory of our life?
Yes.
And we know that testosterone is actually secreted in muscles, so it's not just boost our testosterone, it actually secretes, and it also secretes human growth hormone. So it's like, okay, that's like the youth of vitality and longevity are our hormones. So I've seen it personally in my life when I was in my like 36, 38, and I started having night sweats, like really bad night sweats. And I was like, okay, am I going into menopause or perimenopausal? And I'm telling you, like probably 2 months after I consistently started weight training, that was gone.
Wow.
So yeah. And it's like, the metabolic effects that weight training has on our body, we like rev up our metabolism for like at least 6 to 8 hours after we weight train. So it's like, we're building lean muscle mass and we're getting stronger as we age. Like as women are, we can't age and be frail.
Right.
I mean, we still have to keep doing all the things and protect our backs and the rest of our body. And also just really like, I don't know, I've heard even through like my challenge, often women will say, well, I'm perimenopausal. I can't do this now, or it's going to be harder for me. And it's like, actually, I see the same thing happening with them and the shifts in their body that's happening to people who are in their 30s. It's like, it's so much of it is right
Mental.
here,
Yep.
the limits that we place upon ourselves. But that if we don't insert strength training by the time that we're in our 40s, I mean, yes, we can do it. We can start it at any point in life, but like, come on, that's really how we're just going to keep ourselves so youthful. I feel like 100%.
Absolutely. And, I harp on this a lot on this podcast, but osteoporosis is essentially the number one thing that women are going to deal with, as they get into their 60s and 70s. Like majority of women in America will have either osteopenia or osteoporosis, right? And a huge reason for that, obviously, is the fact of estrogen. I mean, really estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone plummeting at menopause, but like estrogen is so important for your bone health. And when you don't have that anymore, you need to do, I mean, yes, I'm a big fan of hormone replacement therapy. I think that can be super helpful, but you need to go the extra mile for your bone health. And that's what weight training is going to do. And we do know that that is sort of the best way to naturally lift your testosterone, especially as we are going into our 40s when it's starting to, just go down naturally, but we still have some. It's like people all want to know all the time, like, well, what can I do? And it's like, get out there and start lifting some weights.
Go eat good food and go lift heavy weights.
Yes, absolutely.
Within your capacity of lifting. But there was this study that I saw recently that was really cool. It's actually done on males, but that they squatted with a barbell with weights, not just body weight. Well, there was like a body weight squat and a barbell weighted squat, and their testosterone increased by 80%.
Yeah.
80. Yeah. I mean, come on. For me as a female, I know, and I can just say this because we're on this podcast, but like after I weight train, I am like,
let's do this.
Hormones are like up there. I'm like, let's go. It's really cool to observe in your body,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And, I think sometimes some women will get concerned like, oh, my testosterone is going to get too high and I'm going to look manly. And it's like, I always try to explain to women, like our testosterone can never get as high as men's. Like, even if you take testosterone, I mean, you can get too much for your body if you take testosterone for sure, but it's never going to be to the level of a man's. Like, we're just not biologically made that way. So don't get worried about that. Don't get worried about the fact that you're going to like end up by strength training that you're going to end up looking like a man's body. It's not, the whole makeup is different. So you're just going to like form your body into, what its sort of like peak options could be, as a woman.
Yeah, for sure. Cause it's like, the only way you're going to be able to get your testosterone there is if you're artificially
Right.
using testosterone.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of it, and I mean, trust me, women can get too much testosterone if they have seen it, especially on pellets, but you're still not going to look like, I mean, obviously, like if you have any estrogen going on, that is going to help balance. Like if you are, transitioning, it's a different story when you're using hormones in that way. But like, women are, I think, a lot of times concerned about like, oh, I'm going to look too manly if I start doing that. And it's like, no, you're going to look good. You're going to feel good.
Feel good.
Exactly.
Lines start to pop up.
Yep.
And you're going to be like, oh, that's sexy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, honestly too, like as we age, we know that often our metabolism can start to slow down.
Yeah.
And that the more lean muscle mass that we have, the more fat we burn.
Right.
Period.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just a win-win, And also if something drops on your friend, you want to be able to pick it up off of them and save their life,
Right. Absolutely. Well, and I was talking to this other, sorry, go ahead.
Like say a table drops on somebody, you want to be able to lift that table.
Do that. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and I was talking to another trainer who's over 50, and she just brought up, simple things that you want to be able to do when you're 70, like literally get easily up and down from the toilet. Like just as simple as you don't think about that you need sort of strength in your legs to do that. And like, if you're traveling, you want to be able to carry your suitcases, like don't just think of it as this thing that you are necessarily like trying to build up to necessarily be part of a competition. It's like you are trying to build to live and do the things that you want to continue to do into your 70s, 80s, and even 90s, right? Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, because I actually train quite a few clients who are in their 70s, and my trainer is actually in his 70s.
Yeah.
He's
Just
an elite
crazy.
though.
Yeah, he is.
He's like
I'm
a
like, no, nobody in their
30-year-old.
70s is supposed to look like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. But this is my goal. This is
Mhm.
my goal. I'm going to be this way when I'm 76.
For sure. You 100% are.
But
Go ahead.
just how, yes, but how a lot of that, we're talking about weakness, but a lot of it literally is like glute strength too.
Right.
I'm such a big, like, oh my gosh, we got to get our glutes strong.
Yeah.
I mean, not just to look good, but
Yep.
to function for us. It's like core strength and glute strength are like our central hub of where strength comes from.
Right. Right.
I feel like so many people have a lot of pain in their bodies because of just weak glutes. It's like low back pain. I mean,
that's the most common thing you see out there, really, is low back pain.
And how the glutes are just atrophied. And what happens is, because we all have a lot of people who sit often, we have like dead butt syndrome, literally.
Yeah.
And it's like the glutes just don't even fire off. I mean, sometimes it takes me working with a client for maybe 3 times a week for like weeks before we can get their glutes firing off every single time. It's like they don't even feel them.
Wow.
You put them through multiple different things and they're just like, they're not there. But then when they get them, it's like it literally changes up everything. The way you walk is different. The way you stand, even the way you sit becomes different. But where was I going with that? With just with glute strength and the low back. Just how it really just helps with low back pain on a like huge scale. I see this just like across the board. Well,
and I think that's a really interesting point to bring up. I was even reading something about the plantar fasciitis, which a lot of people deal with too. Like it could come down to essentially some of these different muscles, up and down. I mean, really, right? Like the sciatic nerve and all of that, it can impact. And so it's like, it's because exactly what you said is that we're sitting so much of the time and we don't have this mind body connection. And that's part of what you're doing, right? It's like you just said, these people don't necessarily even feel their glutes for a while. And you're training them not only to start firing them off and make them work, but also that mind body connection, right? And once you have the mind body connection, then it's hard to get rid of it. I say, just from being a dancer, I automatically can feel into different parts of my body, I think much easier than a lot of people. But once you've learned how to do that, then you're like, oh, I know this thing's off. Oh, I know that I need to work with this thing versus I think a lot of times people are just like, I don't even know what's off. I just know that I have this pain.
Yeah. And it's like with the glutes when they, or really any muscle group, but the glutes are like the biggest muscle in the body. Okay.
Right.
So they, so when they start to atrophy, they actually start pulling on your trochanter, which is part of your ball and socket of your hip. That's the attachment point. And so they start pulling on that. And so that's what's creating a lot of the pain. Because they're so weak and just fibrous and dead, you know? So I don't know, but that can apply to any muscle group. I feel like I see that a lot with shoulders, with, people really getting them grounded forward.
Yeah, because we're on the computer like that or the phone or whatever all the time. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about diet and how this impacts your body too. Obviously anybody that's ever listened to this podcast knows that how we eat, makes a huge difference for our hormones. But what do you see in terms of starting to build up your body dietarily? What, approach tends to be best for people?
What I feel is best first is cutting out foods that are inflammatory. I mean, I feel like it's just
Yes.
a must. Like, I know, right? And it's like, we have to do this, because if not, then we're not, our bodies are just not going to perform.
Right.
If
Right.
we
They're going
have,
to be inflamed. They're
we're
going
going
to
to
be
be,
inflamed. Yeah.
yeah. And so then there's the swelling that comes along with that. There's the, you can't repair your muscles, the human growth hormone, so all the things that come into play with that. But what I find most across the board is that most people, especially females, actually undereat, and they're not getting the protein they need. Maybe they're on, almost every female, we all know, we've all been subject to some fad diet.
Yeah.
It's like low carb, low fat. God, the most detrimental, I think, is low fat.
Yes,
for
100%.
females, but that's how I grew up.
Yep. The 90s, I mean, that was like low fat heaven, Yeah.
But it's like, so how I feel, and at this point right now, I'm not really exactly tracking like all my macros. I will as I get like closer to my competition. But like yesterday I did, just to get like a snapshot of like, okay, what am I getting in right now? And I'm like 2,000 calories, but it's like, I'm lifting so much. But most women, we need about somewhere around 1,800 calories pretty much every day to maintain. I mean, I think that's pretty good, especially if you're an active female.
Right.
But most
and so many women are getting like 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 calories. Like they don't even realize how low they are.
Yeah. And then maybe like binge eating at night. So really our bodies has to trust us. Like we have to feed it on a time schedule. Drink it on a time schedule. Train it on a time schedule. And then it's going to give us exactly what we want. And that's 100% how I feel. It's like,
I love that. That's really that trust connection, right? And that's, I think, what is missing so much because of all the diets that we've been on throughout the years, right? Like our bodies are like, well, I don't trust you anymore because you're not going to feed me what I need when I need necessarily. And that's what it holds on to extra weight.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, and if it's like, okay, if you're hungry, then, well, you probably are hungry.
Exactly. Like it's a good idea to eat. Yeah.
So like really looking at, really just looking at clean eating. I mean, that's what, like, if you come to me and you're my client, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell, I don't like dairy. I mean, it's to each their own, but like you are wanting to really shift your body and get your metabolism back, maybe get whatever autoimmune things that you might have going on. Cause pretty much almost all females have some kind of autoimmune, something going on. So dairy, gluten, bye. And it's like, then this
that's what I preach all the time. So I'm glad that you're on here telling that too.
Just whole foods. Like, I mean, I do have like oatmeal. I like oatmeal because we have to have carbs. We have to. And I think as females, that's been
especially cycling women. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, hey, you might cycle your carbs, but you can't just constantly go on low carbs. I mean, because anytime we are taxing our body like that in any kind of deficit, it's going to show up somewhere. I feel like it's an autoimmune disorder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you need a certain amount of carbs to ovulate. And a lot of women don't know that, it's like, if you go so super low carb, you're not going to ovulate. And there's your cycle thrown off right there. You're not going to produce progesterone because you're not ovulating. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so one of the things that I thought about earlier when you were talking about the low fat, I heard this yesterday and it was so funny because it made me think about the 90s so much. Somebody was talking about, do you remember those Wow chips?
Yes.
So they had like, I think it was like called like Olestra or something like that. It was it was fat free, but basically it made you have diarrhea, like right off the bat. I'm like, that's how you have the weight loss. They're like, ooh, it's low fat. It's like, yeah, it's going right through your body and taking everything with it.
And look at all the chemicals that are in those foods. I mean, seriously, it's like, yes. I'm like, egg. I definitely, I mean, I know you probably have a lot of people who maybe are or listening that are vegetarian, vegan. And, that's amazing. Like I was vegetarian for like 13 years and, then, but I definitely eat meat now.
Yeah.
I'm very mindful about that though. I eat grass-fed meat.
Yeah.
I'm very mindful about what I put in my body.
Yes.
And it's like fresh vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
fresh meats, and I guess the only processed foods that I actually eat would be oatmeal, if you consider that processed. It's processed to a certain degree,
Mm-hmm.
and rice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Everything else is like
I'm glad
fresh.
you brought up rice, because I'll tell clients that a lot too. I mean, yes, there are definitely some people out there that are intolerant to grains, and you can sort of, I find that most people aren't necessarily long-term intolerant to grains. It comes down to healing some of your gut, and then you're able to handle grains. It's like when you have extremely leaky gut, that's when grains and beans and things like that can be harder to digest, because you need to break down all these things like phytates and everything that help protect them. So if your gut is leaky, if your digestion is not good, then you're not really breaking down those protective coverings on rice and beans and things like that. But once you get that going again, most people can bring them back in. And so I like to tell, women in general, like some of them are like, oh, I can't eat any rice. And I'm like, no, it's not that you can't eat any rice. I mean, maybe for a period of time for certain people, but for most of us, it's just women will get, or people will get into eating too much rice. They're like, I'll take like several scoops with every meal. And it's like, that is the issue more, right? It's like you're going for too much, and not the rice in and of itself being the issue.
I know, because like when you're measuring out your rice for a serving, you're like, whoa, it looks like 2 tablespoons.
Yeah, totally.
Like a big bowl of rice. Like,
yeah.
I think it's like we're just conditioned to like, and I think too, we're just really conditioned to instant gratification, and not being mindful about food, not being mindful about our movement. And so I feel like, with nutrition and with training, it's like it brings a lot of mindfulness and awareness to like what you're doing. When you really look at and you track every single thing you eat for the day, and you really get a big snapshot of like, okay, what you're doing. Like all my clients, I have them do that when they start with me, and they're all really shocked at where they are.
Yep, absolutely.
Because there's a lot of like snacking going on throughout the day.
Right. Especially if you work in an office.
Yeah.
People don't realize, like, because people bring things to the office and you walk by the break room and just grab a little something here or what have you, and that adds up, and we don't think about that a lot. Those little grazings throughout the day. So in terms of protein, how much do you recommend women get a day in terms of grams?
Really, so it depends. It's kind of like where your body weight goal is. To say if your body weight goal, it really depends on what your goals are, though. Actually, right? If your goals are to gain muscle mass, or to maintain, or if you're trying to lose weight, but it's pretty much like if you want to weigh 140 pounds, then you need 140 grams of protein a day. That's where I would say that's kind of like go to that. And it's higher than most people think. I mean,
way higher. A lot of women are getting, like, they come to me and we figure out they're getting 40, 50, 60 grams of protein a day,
And you add that within the first 6 hours of waking.
Yep, absolutely. I know. I always tell women to really try within that first hour of waking, get that 25 grams of protein to, 25 to 30 to get started. Like that's going to rev up, and that's going to help your blood sugar balance for the day. It's setting up your blood sugar regulation for the day. And that's one of our biggest issues in this country is blood sugar dysregulation, especially when it comes to hormones. So it's like, you're really feeding your body in that first hour. It makes such a difference in the whole spectrum of things.
Oh yeah, with your insulin production, everything. Really our largest meal should be breakfast. That's where we should get our most carbs in, is at breakfast, because then we're going to burn those off and use those as energy and fuel for the rest of the day. But to wake up right away, I always say wake up right away, have 16 ounces of lemon water, because you're dehydrated.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then within 30 minutes to an hour, have your oatmeal, your eggs.
Yeah. All the
favorite
good.
breakfast. And I eat a lot of the same things every day.
Yeah.
I really love what I eat.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I put all kinds of spices in it, and it's like really good. But I have oatmeal, eggs, egg whites. I'll have like cashew butter and some kind of fruit. So,
would you mind sharing your oatmeal pancake recipe with the listeners? Okay.
Definitely. Oh my gosh, like right now.
Well, you can send it to me and I'll put it in the notes for people because I know they'll want the actual recipe. But yeah, you can share a little bit of what's in it.
Yeah, so it's pretty much my breakfast that I have every morning, but just in an oatmeal, in a pancake. So I'll do whatever the amount of oatmeal that I'm going to be cooking. I put that in my food processor or a blender with cinnamon. So I usually do like half a cup.
So is it dry oats or?
Dry oats.
Okay, gotcha.
Dry oats, and then I'll put that in the blender because then you can blend it up, and then it's like oat flour essentially.
Gotcha.
You can use oat flour, but I feel like that's a little more processed already than like if you're making it your own.
Yep.
And then I put cinnamon in there, and then if you want sweetener, I choose stevia.
Yeah.
Or monk fruit.
Monk fruit.
Yeah. And then so that's the base, and then I'll do 2 eggs, 2 egg whites, mix all that up, and then I'll put whatever fruit that I'm going to use. So like maybe half a banana goes in the pancake, or like an ounce of whatever kind of fruit goes in the pancake.
Yeah.
And then I just cook that. That's so that's my whole breakfast. And then on top, I'll put cashew butter.
Yum.
A tablespoon of cashew butter, and then fresh fruit. Like it's
perfect. So when you do the egg whites, do you buy like separate egg white mix, or do you take the eggs and just take the whites out of it? And okay. Yeah.
I don't know about, I know there's egg white that it's just inconvenient that you can pour, but I feel like I kind of want the fresh eggs.
Yep. I understand that. Yeah.
Processed.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, let's keep that processing down. Yeah. Well, okay. So let's talk about your upcoming program and the program that you're running right now. Cause I know that, this program, anybody anywhere can do, right? Like they don't necessarily have to be in Asheville. Is that correct? Or do they need to be in this area?
No, you can do it from anywhere, actually. Okay. And any gym. If you're in Asheville, the gym that I train at, you have a free membership for the whole 6 weeks.
Gotcha.
So that's really awesome. That's a huge bonus. If
that is.
In Asheville.
Yeah.
But it has options for beginner, advanced, intermediate, and home. So you can actually do it from home. Nice. You need dumbbells and you need some like bands if you're going to do it from home, and you need something that you can do your interval training on.
Okay.
You could do it outside too, but
right. Yeah. So it's 6 weeks.
It's 6 weeks.
And then, so what does the sort of breakdown of the weeks look like?
Yeah. So it's, so you have a sample meal plan, and in that meal plan, it's like 4 to 5 meals a day, because I'm really about, like, first of all, it's mindset.
Yes.
Then it's nutrition, and then it's training.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the program is structured. So the nutrition, it's like, because you want to eat like every 3 hours. So it's giving you sample meals of what you can eat. And then also how you drink your water, because it really kind of depends on your goals. A lot of people come into the program, though, really because they want to lose body fat. So how do we turn you into a body fat burning machine? A lot of it is your body has to trust you. So how do you drink your water, and how do you eat your food? And it has to be kind of regimented, that you withhold your water surrounding your meals. So you're drinking water 30 minutes before or 30 minutes after a meal. You're eating every 3 hours. And then you have your training. So it's strength training is 4 days a week, and it's split into upper body days, lower body days. So you have exactly what you go into the gym and do. You have how many reps, how many sets, what your rest time between each should be. You have pictures that go along with each exercise, and you have core work 4 days a week, and you have
everybody's favorite.
I know, right? But you got to get that core. It's like, if you don't have the core strength, and that's where a lot of people, it's lacking glute and core strength, but anyway, and then there's the cardio portion, which I like to not really call cardio. It's more like it's interval training. Because we have too much stress in our lives already
Yes.
to do anything more taxing to our adrenal glands.
Adrenals. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So the interval training it's 15 minutes for the first 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and the last 4 weeks is 20 minutes. But it's a minute on, a minute off, a minute
Gotcha.
on, a minute off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not steady cardio. And I'm really don't do steady cardio.
Yeah, especially over 40. I feel like that's when it becomes like even worse.
Burns out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
we've all been there in our 20s. Come on.
Yeah.
It's time to move on.
Exactly. And like you just said, adrenals. Every client that comes to me has an adrenal issue, whether it's too high cortisol or a lot, it's already bottomed out in that low. So if you're doing cardio, you're just pushing your adrenals even more when you already have low cortisol going on. Adrenals are not happy.
Yeah. And then how you push your body into a really inflammatory state.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds awesome. One thing that came to mind, I meant to ask earlier, because you kind of talk about mindset a lot when you, are preparing for competition. Like, do you set aside times throughout the day where you actually do visualizations, or are you kind of like doing the visualizations while you're working out? Like, how does that come into play as kind of a structured thing?
Yeah. So, I'll kind of go talk about my last competition, like leading up to that.
Yeah.
But so for my interval trainings, I like to do an incline. So I'm on the treadmill,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm flat and then incline, and I literally hold on and I close my eyes the entire time. So that's my meditative state.
Yeah.
20 minutes and I'm seeing exactly how I want my body to look. I'm seeing myself walk across stage. I'm seeing myself win. I mean, I'm watching myself posing. It's like I'm watching a movie of myself. How I want to be the moment that I'm on stage, filled with confidence, and then of course when I'm training, it's like, and I've learned so much about this through my mentor trainer, but to really visualize when you're training the anatomy chart, and like, because that you connect to each muscle group that you're working, see what in your mind what it's supposed to look like, and see what you're creating, what you're growing, what you're building. So in the morning though, when I get up, I'm always look at myself like, you're incredible. You're for me right now, it's like you're getting that pro card September 3rd.
Yes.
There's nothing that can stop this. The only thing that is going to stop this is something in my mind, a distraction, and I'm not going to have an excuse. I already know that. And it would have to be a distraction that was like really devastating.
Right.
And so that's not going to happen. So here we go.
Right. Yeah.
And anytime, I feel like the more you practice this, then it just is so ingrained in you that it's not that you don't have negative thoughts about yourself or you don't watch yourself, but they are so few and far between that you're just like, because they come in and you're like, you just let them go because they're not yours.
Nice.
It's something trying to protect you, because every time that we are really pushing past our comfort zone, we're challenging ourselves, there's something in our psyche, maybe from our childhood, that's like, keep you safe.
Yep.
Don't take the risk, and it's like, no, I'm taking the risk.
Yeah.
Onward and upward.
Yeah. Well, and I like sometimes to think of it as like, absolutely, your body's trying to keep you safe in a way, but you can either, I like to say, either kind of crowd out those thoughts with, like you were saying, the things that you're sort of looking forward to and the excitement of getting to your goal, or say, thank you for thinking of me and trying to protect me, but I'm okay. Let that aspect of yourself be like, I'm okay doing this thing. And then you just keep moving forward, right? Like, mindset is such a huge part of all of it, all health stuff. And it's probably, mindset and trauma, which are interconnected, and why I tell my clients all the time, like, go see a therapist, because I can't work with you on the trauma, right? And we all have trauma that we have to work with, because I think a lot of times we need to work on that trauma first, and then we can get deeper into that mindset. Because really, sometimes going straight for the mindset without working with the trauma is just going to keep on this loop. And so you can really start to make different choices once you've started to deal with that trauma and really, really focus mindset wise.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've worked with a therapist
Mm-hmm.
as well. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, on, certain fears that I had
Mm-hmm.
of, I don't see her as frequently as I
Mm-hmm.
was, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like when you're trying to do great things,
Yeah.
like we have to have our team of people behind us.
Yes.
We
Yes.
really do, to
Yep.
help support us, whether
Yep.
that's having a trainer, having
Mm-hmm.
a therapist, having a nutritionist. It's like
Mm-hmm.
we can't be, know everything about everything.
Right.
There are people
Absolutely.
who know way more than that can assist us to get us
Yep.
where we want to be. But oh yeah, definitely worked with a therapist on, you know, blockages that I had, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to have any blockages
Mm-hmm.
here, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
any self doubt. Like,
Yeah.
how do I eliminate all of that as much as possible? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's very important. Yeah,
Yeah.
because somebody else can give you advice, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so simple.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, we're built to be in community, and that's where we really can call on our community when we are trying to better ourselves or, create something new and go out there and do our thing. So this was such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This is
Absolutely.
really exciting. I really appreciate the opportunity a lot.
Absolutely. So let people know how they can get in contact with you and when your next 6-week session starts.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia Sims,
Mm-hmm.
or the website, and I can also post that too. It's Sims Fitness.
Sims
That's
Fitness. Okay.
Sims Fitness. That's where the challenge is
Okay.
located.
Gotcha.
So Instagram, Facebook. I can
Yeah.
put my social media contacts.
Yeah. Yeah.
there
We'll
as
get all of that in the notes of the episode so that people can just click right onto it.
Awesome. And so the challenge starts July 11th.
Okay.
I have an early bird special going till June 21st. So that's
Perfect.
next week. Next week. Yep.
Next week. Yeah.
You get 15% off. So there's
Nice.
two options. There's a basic
Mm-hmm.
where you get the plan.
Mm-hmm.
We have live weekly calls. We have
Mm-hmm.
a Facebook group, or you can get the all-in where you get one-on-one coaching with me weekly. Nice. It's a phone call that we have. It's a 30-minute phone call. And then with that all-in, you also get an in-body scan, which is a body composition scan, before and after. So you can look at body fat analysis and lean muscle mass. Nice. Before and after you do the program.
Cool.
And then you get individualized macros and individualized meal planning, consultation with me. And then you just have my support on a different level if you get the all-in. So and everybody on the program this was my first program that I ran, or my first challenge. Yeah. And everybody is showing results in such a powerful way, just like, yes, the weight loss, but the confidence, the energy, just how much better that they feel, and they feel like their life has been given back to them again.
Oh, love that. Yeah.
Just like constantly on our calls, and I'm like over here, like
crying. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yes, this is what I'm here for.
Right. I mean, for me, I get that. It's like the goal for me all the time with clients is like, I want you to feel more energy and enjoyment of life. I mean, yes, it's great for your body to look great, but like really it comes down to like, how do you feel day in, day out?
It really does. That's everything. Energy is everything. And we strive to have that energy level up all the time.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
You can do it naturally.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, exactly. Just put in the work. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, I will see you next time.